Drew's Grand Adventure by Natasha Nash Dixon with photos by David Seitz. A coyote lives at the Thomas Point Shoal Lighthouse in the Chesapeake Bay. He found his home after swimming out to the lighthouse on Christmas Day, 2023. He climbed aboard and started scaring away the pesky seagulls that made everything white. The ducks even came to visit Drew. One day in January, there was a very high tide, and he fell off the dock. He found his way back when the lighthouse manager hitched a ride with David to get him back home. Everyone was so happy to have him back, they named him Drew. Drew serves the lighthouse well while enjoying beautiful scenery, bay breezes, and greetings from the many fishermen and sailboats that float by. He even gets pats on the head, and sometimes hats, from the many visitors to the light. Then one day, a storm named Debbie started brewing. Drew had been through storms before, so he wasn't worried. But Debbie was fierce, and he was soon scared. A brave Drew stood his post through blinding rain and wind. The winds mingled with the bay to create huge waves. One wave crashed into the lighthouse so hard that the dock that Drew was standing on broke free and began to float away, taking poor Drew with it. Drew was scared and helpless against the storms that now had him adrift in an angry bay. Drew held on for dear life. For hours he held on, until finally the storm moved on and daybreak came. He wondered where he was. Nothing looked familiar. Drew was scared. But then, hours after the sun came up, a boat sailed up, and a wet and weary Drew saw a familiar face. It was David. He knew David from his many visits to his home at the lighthouse. Drew was so happy that David was there to rescue him. As he was being rescued, Drew was amazed to learn that he had floated 7 miles away from his home, but David assured him he would be home soon enough. Until then, Drew would stay with him. Drew was happy to be in a safe place where he was warm and dry. He slept easy that night and was treated to a spectacular sunrise the next morning. That was the start of many new adventures for Drew. David started taking Drew with him on his boat every day. Drew couldn't believe how large the bay was and how many different types of wildlife call the Chesapeake Bay home. He saw eagles, pelicans, hawks, and great blue herons, so different from the seagulls he sees every day. Drew even visited another lighthouse, the Baltimore Light. However, he can't climb ladders, so a nervous Drew was hoisted up in a bucket. He was very scared. Once safely at the top, Drew was treated to a beautiful sunset. He realized that only one lighthouse on the Chesapeake Bay had a coyote on guard, and this filled Drew with pride. One of Drew's favorite things was the ride on a kayak that he received from a friend of David. Drew was nervous at first, but was soon at the helm, exploring one of the bay's many tributaries. Drew had the pleasure of seeing a tall ship up close. He learned that the Libertad sailed here all the way from Argentina and was amazed at how far she traveled. Drew imagined himself at the helm sailing the seas. Then, a few days later, Drew and David sailed past the Pride of Baltimore. Wow, thought Drew, so many tall ships on the bay, and look at all those sails. He wondered what it feels like to catch the wind on sail on one of those ships. What an adventure that must be, thought Drew. It wasn't long before Drew had the chance to live out his fantasy. He was invited to sail on the schooner Woodwind in Annapolis and even got to take the helm, an adventure for Drew indeed. In fact, Drew did such a great job on the schooner Woodwind that David let him pilot his boat. Drew was truly living the dream. Drew's ultimate favorite thing was parasailing on the bay with David. It felt like flying. Drew was a little nervous to be so high up in the air, but when he saw his home from above, what a view, he thought. He was filled with happiness and longing for his home. Drew has learned so much with David and enjoyed every minute of this new adventure. He has made many new friends, and he hopes they will visit him at his home someday. Drew has also enjoyed his rest and relaxation at David's house while he dreams of going back to the lighthouse, and he has visited so many people and places that his head is spinning. Soon, the dock at his old home will be replaced with a new one, and he will go back to chasing those pesky seagulls off the lighthouse. And who knows, maybe he'll meet his mate and enjoy his home even more. The end. If you enjoyed Drew's Grand Adventure, please remember to like and subscribe to the channel. If you would like to see all of the pictures by David Seitz and the sketches by Natasha Nash Dixon. You can purchase the book, and I will provide the link below in the description. Thank you for listening.